SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Tired of your old tractor crying when it sees a hill? Or coughing more than Uncle Earl in pollen season? Trade up now at Sid's Trading Company. Coyote and TYM tractors so mean, they'd plow a cornfield in reverse. Uphill. Get her did at Sid's. SidsTrading.com.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to Middays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. Middays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
All righty, we're all buckled up again, ready to get going. A whole lot of stuff going on. If you're into ChatGPT, there's a new one. GPT-5 is here. You signed up for that one?
Negative.
I did. I set up credentials today for that, converting over to the new version. Heard a great interview with Sam Altman of OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. He said that even as a youngster, I mean, he's not an old guy to start with, but even as a youngster, he had dreams of creating an AI platform for the masses. And now he's done that, and he's got a company. It's a private company worth $500 billion. That's pretty significant. So he was asked, it was Maria Bartiromo conducting the interview early this morning about compensation for the staff there that create these wares. And, of course, it's competitive. We shared with you the other day, Mark Zuckerberg has inked a deal with a new AI superstar employee, $250 million in a compensation package. That's just massive for an individual, 24 years old. And so he said, yeah, it's absolutely highly competitive. No surprise there. But that they're holding their own, and of course, as a private company, they seek to monetize the value of the company and then share that with the staff. That's capitalism. I know that the left doesn't get that, do they, whatsoever, that concept.
It grinds their gears.
It does. Totally. But I just thought it was neat hearing him talk about the applications of the technology across the industry spectrum and use cases that he cited in things we've talked about here in medicine, in manufacturing, banking, finance. I mean, it's across the gambit. And he said even in his company, of course, they use the technology considerably. You know, one thing you don't hear a lot about is the legal industry using it. And
well, you do. You just hear bad.
Yeah, but you know there are 9,000 times more positive outcomes of use of the technology than the one or two negative. They get all the attention. That's just the way our society is wired. I get it. But it, when you do the queries now, there's some like a disclaimer in the ChatGPT interface, right?
That's not legal advice. Should not be construed as medical advice. Or I don't have ChatGPT, but I'm just imagining it's got all those disclaimer somewhere in the fine print.
It's that, and it says, results could be inaccurate. So I got curious. I'll give you an example, and it's kind of connects to a text we got the other day I didn't get to, and it's about the public employees retirement system in Mississippi, one of my favorite subjects. And I got curious about the optional retirement plan, as it is known, ORP. It's made available to employees in Mississippi of the institutions of higher learning. A little different than the standard PERS program. And I got curious about that because I knew some changes were made. So I said, what the heck? It's been a few months since I've reviewed that. I'm just going to see what AI can do for me. So I went to the new ChatGPT-5 and issued the query. I thought it was a fairly well-structured prompt, just to provide an overview of the changes to the optional retirement plan. I even included ORP in parentheses because that's, how it's cited in a lot of material and content in the 2025 legislative session in Mississippi. You would think that would be all the inputs it would need, and it did provide a good response. There's only one problem, Rhino. If you look at the references, one of those was a bill that didn't pass. And that's the risk, right? So I saw that bill. I said, I would have remembered this. And then I looked, of course, and, in prominently displayed with a red background, dead, in the status. You and I look at that stuff all the time during the session. But the response to the prompt included details, provisions in a bill that didn't pass. That's the nuance. So that's where you got to be careful. Of course, from there, though, I could take it. And
so when you correct it, it apologizes profusely exactly. And then shows you how it messed up and why it messed up.
But you can see the risk there and how we end up with problems in the legal industry. There's some cases that have been newsworthy and reported on.
I would take it a step further and say that should be evidence for all these people that are terrified that Terminator was a documentary and not a work of fiction. And they're worried that AI is going to be this machine that takes over. There was a point in time not that long ago where because it hadn't been rigged or tweaked or manipulated, Google search results could give you, at a glance, a pretty good cursory understanding of something thanks due to the human brains all across the world all searching the same thing and figuring out this is the best answer. And that's just people. Look around at the people you know. Those people asking the question of Google is what ranked the Google search results at one point in time.
Yeah.
Not that anymore. AI, in its terrifying magnificence, gets it wrong 75% of the time if you ask it something more complicated than, hey, what color is the sky?
Right. And that's the thing you got to be careful of. So, of course, we're talking about generative AI here, and that's different than other forms of artificial intelligence that do emulate human decision-making. So I would say that those are likely to be more accurate than generative AI that's based on content that it's filtered throughout the Internet in the large language model. So, and I guess my point is, think about a typical application of AI on an X-ray, on a scan. It's been trained. That's a little different than just a random prompt where it goes out and then compiles a response, generates a response, generative. So if you've got AI that's, again, involved in human decision-making that's been trained, the AI used in autonomous vehicles would be an example. That's a little more reliable and predictable. And then you got the super intelligence that Zuckerberg is spending all this money on. It's just mind-boggling. You know what I'm saying there. So that all exciting stuff, I think. But big announcement. at least in the AI world, and that is to some extent powering the markets today. The NASDAQ up, the tech-heavy NASDAQ up, Apple having a great day. It's because there's lots of buzz. You've seen this about their new foldable iPhone. And that's expected to hit the markets next year. $2,000 for this new version. There's a name for it. I can't remember the name, but and investors apparently are getting more comfortable that the tariff environment.
It's the 17?
I thought they had a name for it, a brand name, not just a standard.
You got the
iPhone
iPhone 17, the Pro, the Max, and the Air.
Well,
their typical lingo for the executive class, the super class, and the lightweight class.
Okay. Well, I could have misunderstood what Cook was talking about. He may have been talking about the technology, instead of the phone itself, because I was kind of in and out on that conversation he was having. He, of course, was at the White House. The CEO of Apple, was at the White House a couple of days ago announcing their $600 billion investment. But investors are getting a little more comfortable that the tariff environment is going to be somewhat palatable and viable and not really super disrupt their industry. And that's why investors are pouring money into the tech shares today. We're coming right back with more. Mike Kinnison, the Director of Athletics, joins Middays at Delta State University at 10:35. Our news director, J.T. Mitchell, at 11:20. Stay tuned.
On November 4th.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Yesterday we talked about Amazon's new robo-taxi. And this is something that we're going to see more and more on the roadways in this country. Uber and Lyft, the two big ride-hailing organizations, they announced they plan expansions of autonomous ride-hail vehicles in partnership with companies like Amazon, Tesla, others. They say AVs can operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as needed, and have proven popular with riders. That, according to Lyft CEO David Risher, he said on the company's conference call with investors. Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi said the company's robo-taxi vehicles operated in partnership with Waymo are busier than 99% of our drivers in terms of completed trips per day in Atlanta and Austin, Texas, where they currently have their robo-taxis in use, in operation. One thing about them robo-taxis and any sort of automated replacement to a human, they don't get sick, they don't quit, they don't ask for a raise, they don't take vacation. Well, at least right now, right? The new humanoid robots may start to do that.
And they kind of ask for a raise when you have to eventually update them or upgrade them or repair them.
That's a whole lot cheaper.
If automobiles are any example of what's going to happen with AI-controlled robots, well, I mean, is BMW that you got to pay a subscription for your heated seats, and Jeep had all the hoopla about the pop-up ads on the screens.
So true.
And is it Mercedes that has one of those deals where you got to pay a subscription for something that came as a feature in cars?
Well, I think GM has I have a GM vehicle. It's the same deal. If you want their Wi-Fi, for example.
I can only imagine once they have to start really squeezing to make more profit, eventually you'll have to pay a subscription to use this AI model that works in this environment.
I believe that's true. But that's just a new revenue stream in the world of AI,
refuting
right?
the no pay raises.
Okay.
They're going to be asking you for a raise. It may not be the robot itself. It'll just be whoever's in charge of it.
Oh, that's true. Well, it just depends on, as you know, the configuration of the vehicle itself and all the features incorporated therein. But I think all that stuff's great because you know what? The market will determine. It'll deem whether or not those are viable. And again, I know this idea of the market making those decisions is certainly foreign to our friends on the left who think government ought to make all those decisions, right? So the president, as you know, is seeking a new BLS statistician, not happy with – I don't think he's put one in place, right? I know he terminated the other one, or I think she may have voluntarily resigned. But I've said so many times I have zero confidence in this data. And now there's some former BLS, that's the Bureau of Labor Statistics, high-ranking staff that are retired, come forward and said, yeah, the process is terrible. We don't have really good techniques and methodologies used to collect information that is used to compute these various measurements and metrics.
Yeah, he fired her. And no, they haven't.
No replacement yet, right. Has, however, named in the last 24 hours, right, a replacement to a Fed governor who resigned, I believe, one of those. And he took the head of his Council of Economic Advisors and repositioned that individual. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I know it's the CEA head that Mr. Trump has now appointed to serve on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, replacing one of those who just traded.
Dr. Stephen Moran?
That's it. Yeah, got it.
Replacing Kugler.
Okay. So who one would think would be friendly to Mr. Trump's push to lower interest rates. That's a problem. We did see two of the Fed governors, what are there, 12, I believe, in the last meeting say dissent with the others on keeping rates the same. And that's only happened a handful of times. I mean, that's a very rare situation where there's not a consensus among the Fed governors. But that just occurred. And, of course, there's lots of rumor and buzz, scuttlebutt about Jay Powell, the Fed chairman, whether or not he will step down, the president will terminate him. Does he have the authority and power to do so? So lots of questions around all of that. But this BLS data collection process and then the ultimate outcome, the various labor statistics that governments, industry, investors, financial institutions, I mean, just a long list of interested parties consume and make decisions using that data, need more accurate information, no doubt. And there needs to be, I think, a task force, if you will. I'm not a big guy on let's go hire some consultants, but I think this is a situation where some really smart people need to assemble to figure out how we can improve the data collection process and thus the output, because that output's pretty dang critical not only to the nation's economy but to the world's economy. So that's where we are on that. The back to this PERS issue. So we had somebody the other day, I was just talking about that as continuing to be a matter of importance here in the state of Mississippi. We've got a new tier that will take place, is in place now for all new employees into the program. Some changes in this optional retirement program available to employees of the state's higher ed community. And somebody on the C Spire text line said, well, we just need to raise the employee contribution rate, the employer contribution rate. and institute term limits for members of the legislature. The last one's an easy one. The amount that the legislature, members of the legislature, draw from the PERS program and then their supplemental retirement program is absolutely minuscule because it's just a small number of people. So that won't make a difference one way or another. That may move the unfunded liability metrics about 5 positions after the decimal point, probably more than that when you just look at the statistical relevance of such a small number. But keep in mind that as of next year, March, I believe, anyone newly elected into the legislature will not have available to them the supplemental legislative retirement program, which is just, in addition to PERS, kind of a perk provided to members of the legislature, totally separate fund, doesn't have any impact on PERS finances or financial condition, but they won't have access to that. Those already in the program will continue to stay in it. They'll pay in it. They'll retire. They'll receive benefits. Anybody newly elected, I think it's after March 1, 26, that program will not be available to them. And then, of course, we've got a new hybrid program going into effect. I'm saying all this to say, yeah, that's easy. Just raise the employee contribution rate. Well, that wouldn't be received very well, as you can imagine, by employees. Okay, raise the employer contribution rate. Already done that to the tune of 2.5% over 5 years. But you add more to that, and they really start complaining because it's just more money out of their budget to pay for their employees' retirement benefits. It's a much more difficult problem to solve than just that. There's a Facebook site I found, Rhino, called Social Security Works. You should know this is not commissioned by, hosted by, operated by the Social Security Administration. I don't know who the creator of it is, but this is a post from about a day ago. The American people know that Social Security is stable, safe, and reliable. Here we go, though. We will not hand our earned benefits over to billionaires who are willing to risk our livelihoods to satisfy their never-ending greed. I thought that was relevant for today because of our rather lengthy discussion about this concept of greed. So what they're saying they want here, just so you guys will know, we want those billionaires to pay a whole lot more into Social Security, but get the same amount they presently get out. In other words, we want them to pay for the benefits of everybody else. And they deem that as fair and equitable. That's how it works in La La Land. Mike Kinnison, the Director of Athletics at Delta State, is next.
From the SeabrookPaint.com Weather Center, I'm Bob Sullender. For all your paint and coating needs, go to SeabrookPaint.com. Today, sunny skies, high near 94. Tonight, mostly clear, low around 72. Your Saturday, a 20% chance of rain, sunny skies, high near 93. Mostly clear Saturday evening, low around 73. And a look to Sunday, a 40% chance of rain, mostly sunny, high near 93. This weather brought to you by our friends at Gaddis McLaurin Mercantile in downtown Bolton. Shop local. Gaddis McLaurin Mercantile, your building supply expert since 1871.
My world moves fast. I don't have time to worry about my bank, much less getting there on my lunch break. I just want to check my balance, manage my accounts, and pay Julie back for those concert tickets, ideally before my double mocha half pump is ready. Is that too much to ask from a bank?
Not if you're asking Bank Plus. Our ITM tellers are available 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and our card controls and mobile app keep you in the driver's seat 24/7. Bank Plus is in your corner and right down the street. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC.
Rogers Dabbs Chevrolet is a proud sponsor of Ole Miss Sports. Rogers Dabbs Service, Parts, and Quick Lube are open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. and Saturdays from 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. Crossgates Brandon or RogersDabbs.com. SuperTalk Mississippi Outdoors with Ricky Matthews is brought to you by Ag Up Equipment, your hometown John Deere dealer. Visit us at agup.com today and leave it up to us to make property maintenance easy.
I'm still going.
Superior Consultants has always been your go-to for reliable and affordable heating and cooling systems, and now we're offering an additional product to avoid the 25 to 30% increase that everyone is talking about. With Day and Night, a Carrier family product, your professionals at Superior Consultants can install a reliable heating and cooling system with a 10-year system warranty. Superior Consultants and Day and Night, providing ultimate comfort for your home for an affordable price. Call us today for your free quote, 601-939-7420. That's 601-939-7420, or find us online at mypurierconsultants.com.
I'm Kelly Bennett, and you're listening to SuperTalk Mississippi News. A Brookhaven man has been arrested in connection with the discovery of a body that was dumped in the Silver Creek area in Lawrence County, and police are looking for a second suspect. According to law enforcement, a missing persons report had been filed roughly 24 hours prior to the discovery of the body on Tuesday. Timothy Haythorne is in custody. Police are still looking for 39-year-old Ryan Elizabeth Tobias. She's described as a black female, approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall, and weighs around 115 pounds. At this point, the name of the victim has not been released. For more Mississippi news, sports, weather, and politics, follow us on Facebook, X, or online at supertalk.fm.
Are you thinking about retirement, or are you recently retired? Do you have a plan, or do you have a drawer full of statements? If your answer is the latter, then you're not retirement planning, you're retirement hoping. Risks and inflation are rising, and planning is critical now. At Element Wealth, our exclusive 360 process can create a strategy to help protect what you've worked so hard to build while still providing growth. To start the conversation, visit myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006. 601-957-6006.
The Grammy Museum, Mississippi is thrilled to announce that the Taylor Swift Through the Eras exhibit is extending its stay
until August 31st, 2025.
The exhibit has drawn record attendance and captivated visitors since the grand opening in fall of 2024. Sponsored by Visit Mississippi, this exhibit celebrates Taylor Swift's remarkable 19-year music career. Don't miss your chance to step into Taylor's world at the Grammy Museum, Mississippi. To purchase tickets or to learn more about this exhibit and other events, visit
GrammyMuseumMS.org.
No other news team covers the Magnolia State like SuperTalk Mississippi News. On air with reports every hour and breaking news as it happens. Your news all the time. On air and online at supertalk.fm.
Stay informed and stay connected with the SuperTalk Mississippi app. The SuperTalk app brings you the latest news and connects you to your favorite shows. Download the SuperTalk Mississippi app today and stay ahead of the curve. With Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Little Guns N' Roses bumping us into this segment here. Appreciate that, Rhino. We welcome now Mike Kinnison, the Director of Athletics at Delta State University. Hey, Mike, good to see you, man.
Hey, Gerard. Good morning. It's been a few minutes, but good to see you again, too, man.
Full disclosure to the audience, Mike and I used to have fun playing church softball a long time ago. And I want the folks to know there's no more fierce competitor than Mike Kinnison, I guarantee you.
Well, some of that does diminish with time, but those are great days. And I know you would say the same thing, that we had a lot of great friendships and a lot of interactions with great people during those times.
No doubt.
I look on them very positively. Yeah.
No doubt. All right, so tell us what's going on.
Haven't done that in a while, though.
Yes, sir. I hear you. It kind of passed those days up. But great memories we still hold of all that, no doubt. Tell us what's going on with this Night of Champions at Delta State.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving the opportunity to come on and push that a little bit. The Night of Champions for us is our annual fundraiser dinner. It has multiple dimensions to it. We do so many of the things that with our corporate sponsors and community people and fans and patrons. But, of course, we have silent auctions, live auctions. We have a dinner. It's actually catered by Elizabeth Heiskell and her crew. So we have a lot of great things going on with it. But the highlight is always a featured speaker. This is an annual fundraiser for us. It lets us supplement our athletic budget. But, I think it's even more important that it's an opportunity for people in our area, people who want to come in to be exposed to some individuals that we bring in that you just don't get a chance to hear from every day. Last year it was Archie Manning, and he's a Mississippi Delta guy. He's from this area originally and has a lot of connections, and that was very positive for us. And this year it's Mike Matheny. Mike Matheny, the former catcher and manager of the St. Louis Cardinals, and he comes in to visit with us, and I'm really excited about it. I have learned that Mike Matheny is just a humble, genuine, fine person, and has a lot of layers and dimensions to him. And I'm excited for the people who will be here at our event to hear from him and learn more about who he is.
Played with the Cardinals. I mean, a fantastic catcher. Played in the World Series as well, and then was manager, right, in the major league ranks. Quite the career.
Correct. Outstanding catcher with the Cardinals for about 11 years, I think. But he still holds some records for defensive. He was 4-time Gold Glove guy.
Yeah.
He went 100 straight games without an error. He still holds, I think, the Major League Baseball consecutive games without an error record. And all those things are so positive. He stays out of baseball a couple of years, kind of works with their minor league organization, and then he goes back as their manager in 2011, 2012. But anyway, the first 4 years, he takes that team to a divisional playoff. And that's never been done before or since. There hadn't been a manager that's taken their teams to 4 straight divisional playoffs in their first 4 years. But, we're excited to have him. And what I've learned about him through some mutual friends in the baseball business is, as I said, he has a lot of dimensions to him. First of all, the baseball thing. He's played with and managed so many good players like Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina and some of those guys. And so he has all of those stories that he can talk about and all those interactions. Then there's the manager side. He took the Cardinals to the World Series and, 1 year and has had great success doing that. But now Mike has really carved a spot or a niche, I think, for youth sports and parent involvement in youth sports. He has a platform there that he shares. He's written 3 books. He's an accomplished author, and 2 of those books are on youth sports. The perils and pitfalls of travel sports and parent involvement, and in short, just a general role that he feels like parents should play in their child's development. He also is a great person of faith with a great personal testimony. He's written a 3rd book about living the Christian lifestyle, but he had a near-death scare with a brain hemorrhage that required emergency surgery, and he beat the odds on that. And so he has a great testimony there. And as I said, it's just a lot of dimensions, whether it's baseball, an advocate for youth sports, personal testimony of faith. He's also a great philanthropist. He and his wife, Kristen, have started a Catch-22 Foundation, which plays off of his number. He was number 22 of the Cardinals. And it is a foundation that has been in existence now for over 10 years to serve underprivileged youth, underprivileged children, disabled, handicapped, but also those who, foster children, things of that type. So whichever direction you engage him, he really is very knowledgeable. And as I mentioned earlier, he's just a very humble, genuine person who has no artificial airs about him. And just like Archie Manning, just very down to earth and easy to work with.
Yeah. You know, Mike, you, of course, been a very successful coach. You've been around the baseball business professionally, really for the majority of your professional career and your life. You've run across lots of people like this, have you not, that have had tremendous success, like Mike Matheny, like Archie Manning, and there's a long list of others. It's amazing how generous they are and how much they want to give back.
It really is. And as you interact with them, and we know they're not all that way. There's exceptions, that, but it is so refreshing when you engage or have interactions with someone like this, and they're just so easy to work with. And he wants everything to just be done where, the focus is on a message he brings and not so much on him. You work with him on logistics, you work with him on venue and things of that type, and he's just a very down-to-earth, humble guy, which speaks so well for the success that he has had and the great respect that, there is. I've learned that also in trying to, make connections and research him a little bit. You never hear anyone that doesn't say, boy, what a great guy, and you're lucky to have him. And as I said earlier, we're just excited about having him come share with the people. It's tonight here, and we have it on campus. We have a kind of a meet and greet, corporate sponsor engagement with him early, and then we have a dinner which centers around, as I mentioned, some of the other events we have. But it's a great night for us, and what we want is we want it to be an opportunity for people who come to be exposed to someone that they don't get to have contact with every day. Mm-hmm. And hear just what you and I are discussing this morning about how these people do have another side to them, and they're successful, and they've have quite an impressive resume. But certainly in his case, in Archie Manning's case, they give so much more than they take and receive. That's the highlight, I think, for us, is to be able to present a program like this where people can learn that.
That's awesome. So we've spoken to Dr. Enos. It's been a couple of months, but he gave a fairly positive report on the status of the university, particularly from a financial perspective. Tell us what's going on in your world in athletics at Delta State.
Well, we have, encountered some of the same difficulties over the last 2 or 3 years. They're no secret. It's been well publicized, and we have had to make a lot of adjustments in what we do and how we do it. But the good news is we've weathered that storm to this point. We have not lost any of our programs. We have not lost any of our positions and people. Now, that's not true all across campus. There have been some programs cut, and there have been some people that have lost jobs. But in athletics, we have found ways to, you go to plan B and C sometimes and try and make those things work. So we do things a little different. Yeah. But, fast forward a year or two later after going through this, we're in a much better position. There are positives. Good. We're looking forward to the upcoming athletic season. Our football team projects another good year. They've, had a lot of success, and we open up August 28th here against Central Missouri. So that kicks off the year, and we're looking forward to it.
Good luck with that, and I know you have a great night tonight, a night of champions at Delta State University. We've been talking to Mike Kinnison. He's the director of athletics there. Good to talk to you, Mike. Enjoyed it, man. Thanks.
You too, Gerard. Thanks for having us on.
You bet. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Enjoyed talking to Mike Kinnison. Hadn't talked to him in a long time. Tracked his career, extremely successful. Baseball coach, now, of course, the athletic director at Delta State. And I wasn't kidding, man. Mike was a fierce competitor, even playing church softball, and also a very good athlete, an exceptional athlete as well. So, and I know he's doing a great job. You can tell he's extremely articulate and very much committed to good stuff athletically and otherwise at Delta State University. Thompson Greenwood says, so they prioritize athletics over education. No, I would say they prioritize value over something that produces no value. So if you look at some of the courses eliminated and costs associated with that, when we talked to Dr. Ennis, he was, you could tell personally it bothered him. It's no fun to eliminate jobs if that's your responsibility in his role. That's no fun. Shut down programs and stuff. But if those programs are suffering and really not providing value, then you got to take a hard look at that. In the case of athletics, fact is a lot of people choose a school based on the athletics and activities available at the school. And I would also say that athletics are critical to fundraising and securing contributions from potential donors. There's no doubt about that. Man, all you have to do, and I mean, it's a different level, I get it, but good grief, what did Nick Saban do for the University of Alabama, for Tuscaloosa in the area, for the state of Alabama? It's incredible. I don't know that you can measure the economic impact of bringing championship-level football consistently to the University of Alabama, as in national championships, right? It's amazing what that did. It's a shot in the arm. I would argue that a lot of the success, economic success, occurring in Oxford is a result of some recent football success. Mississippi State, certainly going back to their, when was it, 21, I think, their national championship in baseball, that was a huge boom. To Starkville, to Mississippi State. And it's good to see those programs flourishing. There's no doubt that has an impact on enrollment, on fundraising, on the economies of the local areas where the institutions are located. So I think that's the way that has to be looked at. I wouldn't say prioritizing. That sounds like a liberal talking point to me there, Rhino. You prioritize tax cuts for billionaires over Medicaid, right? And that same sort of deal. And I just want to go on record and let all these liberals know there were no cuts in this legislation. All we did was keep it the same. They can't get that through their head, can they? The tax rates didn't change. They don't want to. There were no cuts to people at the high end of the income spectrum. None. Stayed the same. In place since 2017, mind you. In place throughout the Biden tenure. Hate to even bring that up. It makes me sad thinking about that. There were no tax cuts. I repeat, no tax cuts. We simply extended and made permanent what was already in place. They failed to mention that and explain that little nuance. They don't contextualize anytime they talk about that. Back on this Social Security website, it's Facebook site, you took a look, you perused it as well, right? Well, you determined for us it's a nonprofit organization. I knew it wasn't affiliated directly with Social Security. Will you please tell the folks who's behind this, the money?
Yeah, the nonprofit and the Associated Political Action Committee were both started by none other than John Bowser Bauman.
What the heck?
Singer best known as a member of the band Sha Na Na and the game show host.
Where did that come from? What's his interest in this? I wouldn't have put that together. I mean, just seeing him doing sort of cover for 1950s era bands. That's what Sha Na Na was all about, in the 70s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And he, of course, they all sort of had the slick back hair, the tight-fitting black jeans and short sort of cut-off T-shirts. Had the look of that period of time. What's his deal with Social Security? By the way, you saw the banner on that Facebook site. The very background's like a big Social Security card, and then off to the right is Ida Mae Fuller herself. Most people don't even know what that is. She's shown there holding the first check. I've talked about this on the program. And in front, of course, the father of Social Security, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That's the banner on this site. We're coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News. We got 2 hours remaining of Middays. Stay with us. Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
So the Not Fall Camp tour continues. Football is here, and so is Sports Talk Mississippi. The Sports Talk boys are about to embark on their Not Fall Camp tour, talking to coaches, players, and getting you ready for the start of the football season. Sports Talk Mississippi at Two Brothers Smoke Meats in Starkville. That was on Wednesday. Tons of giveaways like Gentile golf shirts and hoodies. Also have golf giveaways, hotel stays, gift certificates to Philip M's at the Pearl River Resort. The Not Fall Camp Tour is presented by Pearl River Resort, your destination for casino thrills, family fun, and live entertainment. Go to pearlriverresort.com for more info. So, we had an 8/6 Not Fall Camp, 8/6 tour, and then we got one on 8/13 and one on 8/20. So, one a week each Wednesday for the next coming 2 weeks. I'm not sure where they'll be next week versus the following. Are they in Oxford or in Hattiesburg?
They were in Oxford on Wednesday. They'll be in Starkville next Wednesday, and the following Wednesday they'll be in Hattiesburg.
All right, appreciate that. Yep, that's the Not Fall Camp Tour. The C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Of course, go to myelementwealth.com. Call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. Speaking of, the Dow in the green comfortably at up 194 points. The NASDAQ also looks to set what could be another record. It's had several, I think 17, if I'm not mistaken, set this year. It's up 186 points at 21,000 and change. The 10-year yield, that's what dictates interest rates for mortgages, automobile loans, credit cards, etc. It's about 4.2 and change, up a little bit. The price of oil just hanging around that $63, $65 a barrel range. Really haven't seen hardly any change in that in quite some time. $64.27, the current price of Brent sweet crude oil. So, get you updated on all the financial news. On the C Spire text line, had a question about, let's see here if I can find it. What should we do? I think it is. If you can help me find that, Rhino, what needs to be done? I think he texted or she texted something else.
Yeah, it was what's the solution, and then how do I get a Fighting Okra shirt?
Oh, okay. I got you. I see it now. as far as how do I get a Fighting Okra shirt, I would think those would be available at Delta State, right? I don't know. I suspect they have an online store, most colleges do, where you could purchase a Fighting Okra shirt. That's probably one of the coolest mascots in all of sports, I would say, college sports. The what's the solution? And I know this is going to sound kind of flippant and unserious, but it really is the way this works. You got to have more coming in, less going out, or a combination. Now, that being of the two, it's no different than if you were running your household budget and you were upside down. What would you do? You got to have more coming in, less going out. Same deal. No different. A lot more complicated here because you've got so many people affected, and the obligation in place to all those that are actively in the system as employees, paying in towards their future retirement, talking about the public employees retirement system. Of course, those drawing benefits out, same deal. The state has an obligation, in my view, to fulfill there. No change in their benefits. Talking about existing members that signed up for a particular program. And that consists of those paying in, awaiting their benefits when they retire, those that are currently drawing benefits out. I just don't see that it is viable, is practical to make any changes there, and I'm quite sure any such changes that would be detrimental to the members of PERS would draw a very strong lawsuit. I was going to say legal argument, but I think it would quickly evolve into a lawsuit. I just don't see it. I really don't. And that would require legislative action for the most part. Few things the board can do, but I mean, any major changes would have to be done by the legislature, signed into law by the governor. That being said, last year, the legislature did pass a bill that creates new tiers, it is called, and so all those that enter the system after a certain date, I think that may have been July 125, if I'm not mistaken, Rhino. I think the SLRP was March 126. New employees that work in the public sector in Mississippi, July 125. Was that the effective date based on this new Tier 5 hybrid plan that was introduced in
March 1, 2026.
Okay, so it's the same as the SLRP program then, right? I'm not sure that I think the March 125, that perhaps applied to the optional retirement plan. There's a couple of little changes made there. Maybe not. Maybe that's what didn't pass. You see, there's so much information floating around there. But, okay, March 126. And all that really means is that anybody who is hired in the public sector that participates in the public employees retirement system, March 1, 2026 or after, would be enrolled in what's called a hybrid plan. It's part defined benefit, part defined contribution. Quick explanation of the two. Defined benefit plan simply means that you pay into it, and when you start drawing benefits, those benefits continue for life until you pass from this earth. Defined contribution plan, that's similar to what you'll find in the private sector. You pay into it. Maybe your employer pays into it. You're building a nest egg. You get ready to retire. You start drawing out of it. When the money runs dry out of that account, you're done. It doesn't last for life. That's the difference between those two. So much, much, much more predictable, of course, because it's real easy. The money runs out when you've spent it all, essentially, when you've withdrawn it all. So this hybrid plan simply means that new employees get a part PERS standard defined benefit and a part contribution, and the state still, or the employer continues to contribute to the PERS defined benefit program, but it contributes at the same level. The rest of it goes to pay down the liability. It doesn't go to the defined contribution plan. The employer can accommodate that at their discretion. So that helps, but that sort of provides benefit in terms of stabilizing the program down the road a long way. What do we need now? Money. That's why you heard the legislature talk about adding some revenue stream to PERS Carving out lottery proceeds was one of the suggestions. Just writing a check for $100 million, that's another a year. That's another suggestion. That would require several years of such an allocation, a transfer of funds. The legislature did, in fact, do that last year, $100 million. I think it was $110 to be exact. So it's kind of all that. Really, it's changing benefits for the future employees while keeping everything the same for current employees and beneficiaries, and then just sending the program more money. Employers presently are dealing with, that would be counties, municipalities, state agencies, institutions, educational institutions, etc. They're currently dealing with a situation where the contribution rate they are required to pay is rising by 2.5% over 5 years. We're in year one of that right now. That passed last year in the legislation. So that's more money going into the fund. So that's a long explanation of, what can we do here? Then on the C Spire text line, that's an entitlement. Therefore, more has to come in. With my employees and I have over 100, I pay 10% per pay period into a retirement account. They can put in whatever they want. When retiring, they have what they got. Why can't it be that simple? Yeah, I just explained that. I hope that was understandable, that we're obligated under law, honestly, it's present law. It's a defined benefit program. The amount you pay in, the amount the employer pays in, is really not used to determine how much you get out. It's not as simple as, this is how much you guys have paid in, you're retiring, this is how much you got available to withdraw. That's not the way Social Security works. It's not the way Medicare works. It's not the way the public employees retirement system works. You take those benefits out until you leave the earth. It's not based on the amount you or another party, such as your employer, paid in. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio. It's JT Mitchell, our news director here at SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Hey, this is Bob.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Trucking, got my chips cashed in, keep trucking. Like the doo-dah man together, more or less in line, just keep trucking on.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We appreciate you joining us today. Final day of this hot week in August in the state of Mississippi. It's our pleasure to welcome now JT Mitchell, the news director here at SuperTalk Mississippi News.
What's going on, Gerard? How are you?
What's happening? Rhino, was that a Doors tune you played? I mean, it's JT.
Grateful Dead is what I heard at first.
That's right. That's what I thought. Grateful Dead.
He knows I like the Dead and the Doors. Yeah, it has been a hot week, and it only gets hotter. Unfortunately, August is one of the worst months for us in terms of heat.
Yep.
And to further ruin your day, we lose about 40 minutes of sunlight throughout the month.
Okay. Yeah, this is the month when you start noticing that it gets darker a little early, and that, of course, progresses till we fall back.
And then we make it worse by switching the clock, right?
Exactly, and go back to standard time. But let's do elections in the state of Mississippi. Let's talk about that first. We had special elections due to redistricting this past Tuesday. The results are in. Tell us about it.
That's right, and we covered it hard. So hopefully everybody out there listening tuned into us. If not, I invite you to the next election and then every election afterward, because we're doing live updates on air. We're doing live updates online, on social media. Honestly, keeping tabs on it harder than anyone else, at least in my opinion. I'm biased, of course. So Tuesday night, we were up here pretty late, and I won't get into the weeds of it much in terms of how we got here, right? We had 14 legislative districts that were reshuffled because of a federal order where the state was determined to be diluting black voting power. So they had to make new maps, and they did. They got accepted, and now we're having those elections. We only had 7 contested primaries. This past Tuesday, we'll have these 14 general races on November 4th. But really, there was only one big surprise, and you may have already discussed that a little bit throughout your program, is that Senator Robin Robinson in District 42, she lost.
Right.
And she not only lost, she was an incumbent.
Yep.
She not only lost, but I wasn't as necessarily shocked that she lost. I was shocked at how bad she lost.
Yeah.
Don Hartness, who was a Republican challenger, not to mention there was a third Republican challenger, her own brother,
Right.
RJ. Don Hartness got 70+% of the votes.
Yep.
And I thought that was kind of shocking. How much have you kind of dived into that on your program as of now?
I mean, we presented the figures and talked about Don getting out and about, and of course what he really hung his hat on and promoted, as did former Senator Chris McDaniel, who supported Don, was this redistricting vote that Senator Robin Robinson cast, both for the judicial district and the Senate district there in Jones County. And so I think their campaign strategy was to appeal to Jones County voters, that district, that, hey, she didn't really look out for the best interest with this vote of redistricting for Jones County.
That's right. And Chris McDaniel, he may not be popular enough to win a statewide race like that lieutenant governor's race 2 years ago. But this proved that his power in Jones County is still unmatched. He was on social media every other day posting about how Robin Robinson needs to go, and Don Hartness is who he thinks should replace her.
Yeah.
And then the Laurel Leader Call, which is a newspaper that's read pretty. It's got a good readership down there in Laurel and Ellisville. They probably put out 3 to 5 op-eds against her. The cards were not stacked in her favor, and then when you have your own brother running against you and people don't know why, that familial element only hurts. Honestly, a PR crisis. And so she lost. But outside of that, incumbents stood strong.
Yeah.
They really did. And I won't go through all of them. But if you had an incumbent in your district running outside of Robin Robinson, they won.
Chris Johnson, Mike McClendon, 2 examples there.
Exactly.
Chris in the Hattiesburg area, Mike DeSoto.
And Johnson in District 44 throughout the night. And I'll tell you what, polling results from local legislative races, it's like pulling teeth. I mean, we had 5 different streams going from different courthouses, but we got it done. In Senate District 44, Chris Johnson, I was kind of concerned for a minute when watching those results. He went down early.
Yeah, I saw that too.
He stayed down, but then when that last 40% of precincts came in, he went up and retained that seat, at least going into the general.
Yeah. You know, I think when I checked it, 40+% of the votes were in, and he was down. And he thought, well, wow, if this is a trend, this could be a problem for the senator. But he recovered nicely and ended up winning.
I even announced it that we might have an upset alert, and then, of course, came back and said, don't worry, Johnson is going to win.
Yeah.
So that leads us into the generals. There will be 14 seats from this past election, which is really DeSoto County area, Tate, Tunica, Quitman, and then down in the Pine Belt, Forest, Chickasaw, we mentioned Jones.
Yeah.
But then we're going to have 2 other special elections, which is the Clarksdale area for the House and the Jackson area, a portion of Madison for the Senate, also on that ballot because Orlando Payton became mayor of Clarksdale and John Horn, mayor of Jackson. And so really just my PSA is go to the Secretary of State's website. If you need direction, we give it to you at supertalk.fm. and find out if you have an election.
Yeah, that's a good point. And
because turnout was bad.
I agree. And I would say the Secretary of State, they've done a good job of improving the tool set available.
It's
the
y'allvote.ms.
Is a good site. It tells you everything you need to know to get ready and to cast your vote. I can't really explain the apathy.
It grinds my gears.
It's crazy. I don't get it.
Because in my opinion, and Gallo and I used to get after this all the time, if you don't vote, you really have no reason to complain. You have no right to complain. And so go use that tool. Once again, it's y'allvote.ms. Figure out if you have an election and go vote.
Yeah.
That way, if the person you want to win loses, you can complain all year long until the next election.
Yeah, that's totally true. All right, so talk about this West Nile situation, the West Nile virus.
Yeah, so we got word this morning from the Department of Health that the first death spurring from a West Nile virus case has happened.
Wow.
And it's always said we do not have an identity, gender, age. We do know the person lived in Washington County. I've also seen an uptick in West Nile cases, or at least bites, in Rankin County. So this happened this morning. It's about a week earlier than the first death of last calendar year. Last year, I think 8 people died from West Nile.
Wow.
This year, I don't know what we're going to end up at, but to make sure that number stays low, there's plenty you can do. And it's easy. Wear the mosquito repellent.
Okay.
Remove standing water from outside your homes. Those mosquitoes love nasty water that builds up in your ceramic pot or wheelbarrow or whatever it is outside your house. Just common sense stuff. And so that was a very unfortunate announcement to get this morning. But we had to report on it.
You would think that what has been a very rainy year, and particularly a rainy summer, honestly, that is contributing to this.
No doubt. And it'll be sunny at 9 a.m., not a single cloud in the sky, and then it's raining by 10.
Yeah.
It's the darndest thing.
Yeah.
I even removed some sitting water outside my house recently. I had a cooler out there.
Okay.
I built up in kind of the creases. And so just do stuff like that and wear repellent. You'll be safe.
Yeah. Well, the sitting water, I know I was always under the impression that is a problem as far as spawning new mosquitoes.
Yes, you will have an entire colony outside the Gibert home if you leave sitting water.
I get it. So the state has had a significant focus on economic development. The governor touts this all the time. He should. We've scored some huge wins. I went to a breakfast concerning that in Madison County this morning, and our keynote speaker was Haley Fasackerty for energy, talking about economic development. But there's a trend in economic development where just rather than operating as an island in a community or in a county, we're seeing them coordinate, collaborate more. Talk about that.
Well, one player can't win a football game. It takes an entire team. And I think that's a proper metaphor for this, that we're seeing some different regions of the state kind of say we can't do this by ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to get together and work off each other's strengths to be able to bring in these large-scale projects that we want. The newsroom reported earlier this week after an interview that was done with Richard Cross with Ryan Miller of the Oxford-Lafayette County Economic Development Foundation that up there in Oxford, they say, we think our area of the state is prime for development, but we need help from Panola, from Tate, from Yalobusha counties, and so they've formed an alliance to do just that, to work off each other and get these projects. It's brilliant in my mind, and I know we're about to go out, but I encourage people to go read that article at supertalk.fm. And I know Ricky Matthews wants that same kind of alliance on the coast.
On the coast, he sure does. Yeah, he wrote an article as well. Strength in numbers,
that's right,
as they say. J.T. Mitchell, the news director at SuperTalk Mississippi News, has been our guest. Always appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Gerard. Thanks, Rhino.
We're in the Element Well studio. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
From the SeabrookPaint.com.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back in the Element Well studio. That is The Doors. That may be one of my favorite Doors tunes, Waiting for the Sun. Also, the name of one of their albums. I would say, I'm going to guess here, 67, something like that. It was introduced. Waiting for the Sun. That was the title song from the album there. What do you say there?
Released by Elektra Records on July 3rd, 68.
Dadgummit, missed it by a year. Okay.
Recorded
68.
between late 67 and May of 68.
Okay. Makes sense.
At TTG Studios in L.A.
All right. Got it. Elektra Records. I don't think they're around anymore, are they? I'm sure one of the big groups absorbed them.
Let's see. Elektra Records, founded in 1950.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're still around as 300 Elektra Entertainment under the Warner Music umbrella.
Okay. I remember living in California back in 1981, and I was working in Kern County, which is where Bakersfield, Fresno are, big county, a bunch of agriculture, and had a close friend that I'd met through work from the Chicago area that was on a job down there in L.A. So I'd drive every weekend. We'd play golf, and I would bunk down on the floor in his little bitty efficiency apartment there in Santa Monica. It was $750 a month back then, and it was the bedroom, the bathroom, and the kitchen that only one person could get in was essentially one room, and that was $750 in 1981. But what I was thinking about is driving on the freeway there en route and always marveling at the big Capitol Records iconic tower there in L.A. that's circular, kind of, I guess, designed to resemble a record. I thought it was kind of cool with the big Capitol logo on it. I always thought this is pretty neat. A Mississippi boy out here driving by Capitol Records, kind of cool. On the C Spire text line, why are gas prices still relatively high when oil is so low? I wouldn't say I was talking about the price of oil when I was giving kind of a financial update earlier in the program. I don't know that I'd say it's low. Usually the $50 kind of benchmark level is considered, high, low. It's sitting at $65 a barrel right now. When the president took office, it was about $75 a barrel, so it's down $10 a barrel. The national average price of gas is about level with where it was in January on Inauguration Day. It really hasn't changed, the national price. But the price of oil is down 10%, roughly. And I think that's largely due to the cost of everything else. So even though oil, of course, a major input and driver of the price of gas, and it has come down a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. I wouldn't call 10% a lot. I'd describe that as just a moderate, small decrease. Yeah, the price of gas really hasn't followed it. And if you look at the profitability of the major oil companies, it's not falling to their bottom line because they're honestly down from a net profit perspective this year relative to last year when the price of gas was about 40 cents per gallon more. And also was the price of oil per barrel. So all the reports I've read indicate that we could expect gas to stay at this level for quite some time. In that $60 to $70, $72 a barrel range, which again largely determines the price of gas at the retail level at the pump. And that's exactly where we are. We're basically in the middle of that right now. So I don't know that I'd look for much change there anytime soon. And most of the big oil companies are saying that, even at this price, they're not motivated to go out and explore and produce more crude oil to flood the market to drive the price down because that does affect their profitability. So they're kind of hanging in there where it is because the demand is still adequate and strong and sufficient for their models. So that's kind of where we stand on that right now. Thomson Greenwood is just bound and determined, of course, to eliminate or freeze the cost of living adjustment, part of PERS, and I maintain that would draw a very strong argument in the form of a lawsuit, and I believe the state of Mississippi would lose that lawsuit. And therefore, it's not going to happen. I think that lawmakers have been advised accordingly. And not to mention that it would be extremely unpopular, beyond belief unpopular. I mean, you'd see an army of people with pitchforks at the Capitol. I'm exaggerating a bit, just as long as they don't get in the way of of the Rhino bill transportation system between the House and the Senate, right? Tell the folks again what that consists of.
Oh, well, it's a whole parade with the Music Man leading it from the front with his baton, and you have the inflatable T-Rex costumes with people on roller skates, and then you've got the Shriners with their little cars doing donuts.
On the mini bikes, right?
Oh, yeah. Then you got the guy on stilts walking by in the Uncle Sam outfit.
Gotta have that with the beard and the big top hat, obligatory, of course. Yeah, that's how we move legislation from the House and the Senate down at the state capitol. And Thomas says it will, with legislation passed to change the terms, no different than renegotiating contracts in bankruptcy. Wrong. It's not bankrupt. It's not that there's not a solution here. Bankrupt, there's not a solution. It's over. You're liquidating assets. That's not the situation. So you're wrong about that, Thomas. I'm just going to tell you, you're wrong. It's not going to happen. Quit bringing it up because it's not ever going to happen. You want to propose something else? Send it on and we'll discuss it. I've provided my ideas and I put them in writing in an article. We also had someone that said, and I agree, let's pass mobile sports betting. I totally support passing and enacting mobile sports betting, and let's dedicate the proceeds from that to the PERS program. I will tell you that's not popular in the public. The public, just in my observation, and it could be anecdotal, I haven't done a survey or anything. I don't want to mislead in that respect. I think most people feel like, wow, we're going to create this new program, mobile sports betting, but all the money's just going to a select few people. Few relative to the population, because when mobile sports betting was debated on the House floor, I happened to be in the chamber. That was a rather lengthy debate, and there were some on the Democrat side that didn't like the way that the folks that operate these mobile sports betting platforms could just partner with. They had to partner with a casino, an existing authorized gaming institution, if you will, in the state. They didn't like the fact that they could just all pick one, that they need to spread that out. Mainly this was an argument made by Minority Leader Robert Johnson, who comes from Natchez. There, of course, are casino properties in Natchez, and his concern was, well, these mobile sports betting operators may not choose to do a deal with the Natchez operator, which means they'd lose out on that income. And he didn't want the market working, in other words. He wanted the government to force. And he didn't offer a methodology for allocating those contracts. He just wanted that to be somehow considered in the legislation. I disagree with Representative Johnson on that. I think the market ought to sort that out. And then the other thing was, okay, well, how can we get the proceeds spread equitably, across the state? And that was a subject for debate as well. So I don't know that this would be popular if you would take the proceeds. And now the estimates were $20 million a year. I personally believe that mobile sports betting would produce more revenue for the state than that. And that's based on other states that have done it, who found that the reality of the proceeds once the program was implemented rather substantially exceeded the projection. The one you and I talked about, I think it was North Carolina, right? We were just shocked at the amount of money going into the North Carolina Treasury as a result of mobile sports betting proceeds way more than they projected. I think we'd see the same here. How much? I don't know. It's a guess, honestly. But this PERS thing's not going away. It's going to get a lot of attention in the next legislative session as well. I would say that and school choice would be the top two issues. And a matter of fact, on the other side of the break, I'm going to share with you the Democrat Party of Mississippi's recent press release concerning school choice.
Poly Up of Mississippi. Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. So I can't read what you sent, Thomas. It's too small and blurry, honestly. So with respect to freezing the cost of living adjustment, yeah, legal research, he sent a letter. It's from Jones Walker, their law firm here in town, where there's questioning about the ability to freeze the cost of living adjustment in the PERS program. Sure, it's a valid legal question. I'm just sharing my opinion that it likely wouldn't hold up in court. That's all I'm saying. That you would be found, the state would be found in breach of their legal contractual obligation, and I believe the state would win. That's just my opinion, And the fact that state would lose. Pardon me, state would lose, and the members of PERS would win. Right? I think they would prevail. I just think it would be a problem. I mean,
even if you limited the damages under the tort reform, you're looking at what? $180, $200 million that would have to be awarded?
Yeah.
And then you'd still have to come to some sort of agreement?
Right. And that would be very difficult to hash out and find consensus around. So I don't see that happening. And just the fact that the lieutenant governor sent it doesn't mean he supports it. Honestly, I think he was just looking for some legal opinion and cover when this issue comes up for people like you that want that to happen. That's my opinion. I don't know a person in the legislature, and Rhino, you and I have them in here all the time. Do you think there's a person in the legislature that would vote to make any major change to the cost of living adjustment in the public employees retirement system?
No.
We've point blank.
Not unless they somehow convince themselves it would gain them attention and improve their political prospects.
Right. Some sort of political gain from it. Because I've directly asked them. Honestly, they're pretty quick to point out we're not making any changes before I ever ask them, right? You've heard them say that here on the show. So that's going nowhere. It's a waste of time. But I tell you what is something we ought to talk about, and that's the school choice debate, which is something we've talked about a lot in the state, and we're going to be talking about it more because the Speaker of the House has made it clear that's his top priority in the state of Mississippi. The Democrats have gotten ahead of this, if you will, and issued a press release. This came in a couple of days ago, earlier this week, and it's kind of styled as an opinion piece sent as a press release from the Mississippi Democratic Party, MississippiDemocrats.org. Opinion, Mississippi's children deserve strong public schools rooted in dignity and fairness, not false choices. So, and it's co-written by, at least that's the way it is attributed to Representatives Robert Johnson, Kabir Kareem, Sheik Taylor, also the head of the Democratic Party in the state, Senator Derek Simmons, all Democrats, all, we should point out, African-American Democrats, though their race doesn't make any difference. But what we do know in Mississippi is we only have 2 white Democrats, right, both in the Senate. I don't think there are any in the House. And it's a little striking to me that the parties have kind of fallen down and segregated based on race in the state of Mississippi. But what they say here is that as the school choice debate resurfaces, the loudest voices often claim to speak for, quote, students and families while overlooking the very systems that have historically served them least. And that's no accident. Conservative voices pushing school vouchers and charter expansion frame public education as a failure and families as victims of an inflexible bureaucracy. The truth is far more complex and more urgent. Virtually everything in that opening paragraph is false. It's false. We got a break up on us right now. It's Fox News, SuperTalk News. We got an hour of middays remaining. We'll get to the rest of this letter, this opinion piece penned by members of the Mississippi legislature on the Democrat side of the aisle concerning education freedom after the break. Stay with us.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. It's Hour 3, the afternoon portion of the program from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
So Rhino and I were just talking. Thomas also points out, yes, this particular piece, this press release from the Mississippi Democratic Party does appear to be AI generated. And, you know, the way I usually judge that is just looking at the authors, and I think, well, does that sound like the way they would communicate? And this just sounds a little different in my view. No disrespect to those gentlemen who all serve in the state legislature. And it's not just them. There are a lot of people who say, wait a second, that doesn't line up, does it? The other thing that I noticed was that there was separation in the middle of a paragraph, right? There's a blank line separation where in the middle of a paragraph, instead of continuing the paragraph altogether before a blank line separating it from the next paragraph. That was a little fishy to me. I mean, that could certainly be just an overlook and an error. But nonetheless, this is a press release from the Democrat Party about school choice. And I read you the first paragraph, and it once again, it's about how do I say this without just beating the horse to death? This is just about giving people a choice. This is not about an argument that we got to do this to fix this problem, that problem, this problem. And it's not that. It's just, no, we believe giving a choice and letting the market decide creates the best outcomes, period. That's all we're saying here. This is not about harming public schools. It's not even about improving public schools. It's about just letting the market do its job. It is the best arbiter of these sorts of outcomes. And this deal that we're overlooking the very systems that have historically served them least, that's no accident. No, that's just false. Nobody that is in the camp of supporting education freedom says, yeah, I sure do want to hurt those public schools. But isn't that what they're implying here, Rhino? That's exactly what they're saying. You just want to leave the public schools behind. Just want to hurt them. It's just not true. And they go on to say that education is not just a service in Mississippi. It's a civil right. Okay. Nobody argues with that. That right was hard-won, particularly for black families. Always got to inject race in the deal. The legacy of separate and unequal schooling of underfunded districts and court fights for basic resources is not ancient history. It's playing out in our classrooms today where children in rural and high-poverty districts too often go without. And by the way, it's without up-to-date materials. That's where the break in the paragraph occurred. It should not have been there. Certified teachers are even functioning families. It's not a coincidence that many of these same districts are majority black and located in communities still recovering from generations of disinvestment. Well, so
you can't really expect a party whose only reaction is a knee-jerk reaction to actually proofread a press release, do you?
You have a point, but yes, I do. I expect more out of, and it's not just these are members of the legislature. It's not as if they don't have access to lots of people that could help them with this.
Maybe not lots.
Well, a sufficient number.
The party has definitely been dwindling in recent years.
Well, I just mean it support staff and so forth that would help them.
Yes, several eyes should have noticed the problems, but yeah.
And look, the same is true for the tax reform legislation that made its way all the way through with a pretty glaring...
That's why I never felt sorry for the Senate, even though they got in their feelings. Tough. You're the ones that made the boo-boo.
It's amazing that made it through so many sets of eyes. But nonetheless, I think it's important that we acknowledge there was a time in the state, it is ancient history, however, that there was intentional disparity and neglect of black students, no doubt. And there's a great exhibit, by the way, at the Civil Rights Museum. And it should be remembered in our history as history. Is that what's happening today? No. Is it disinvestment? No. That's not at all what's happening. What's happening is a decline in many of these communities as a result of there just not being any economically viable opportunities for investment. This disinvestment is because the market says, yeah, that doesn't make good business sense. I want to work with them as well on figuring out a way to address that. No doubt about it. But I know it doesn't help when you're running the city of Jackson, for example, and it's constantly under the shroud of all sorts of corruption, as an example. And you don't have to go to the rural areas to find this problem. It's right next door, where we're sitting here in the city of Jackson. But you look at who's been running that place, they've run it into the ground over the last 35, 40 years. I traveled over to Jackson yesterday for a funeral for a father of a friend of mine after the show, and made my way through my old stomping grounds over in West Jackson. I mean, I almost wanted to cry just seeing how it had deteriorated and all the just boarded up, dilapidated, abandoned structures and overgrown houses and everything else, just all over the place. Just tremendous amount of neglect and abandonment. And it's kind of depressing, but it's an indication of the problems that exist. And we really haven't had leadership, in my view, that's come up with any plans. They've been more concerned about, I think, their own personal gains politically and financially and economically than those of their constituents. Yet they're going to blast us and tell us that we're the problem here. You don't care about us. There's nothing could be further from the truth. But I will point this out. I passed by, because they talk about charter schools in here as well, if I can find that citation in this one page. I think they mentioned that, did they not? Rhino Charter Schools specifically, looking for that. But I passed by a thriving charter school. It's called Ambition Prep. And it's on Clinton Boulevard there in West Jackson. And that building, by the way, used to be a Rose's department store, discount store. I remember when it was built. When I was still living over in that area, I think in the 70s, may have been in the 80s, but a long time ago. And, man, that place looked like it was hopping, honestly. It was well kept. There were several school buses out. Parking lot was full. Looked like it was and I know it is being successful. And who's that serving, though? See, that's the problem with this argument they're making. What are the demographics of the student population in that charter school look like? Look like the very people that are blasting us that we're neglecting others because of race. I don't know. I just feel like that something's lost in the translation here. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe charter schools. It could have been some other communication I saw.
I don't see it in this.
I don't either. Specifically reference charter schools, but and again, so what are they saying? What are they suggesting as a solution here? More money. More money. That's all this is. We need more money. That would fix the problem. No, it wouldn't. I tell you what would fix the problem.
Hasn't yet.
Right. Because if you look at the lines on a line chart over the last few decades depicting the investment per student in this country in public schools and the educational outcomes, they cross. Money keeps going up. Outcomes keep going down. And that, I think, is a reflection of society overall and the degeneration of it. I've said it so many times. I know our friend Gary in the Berg agrees. It's the dissolution of the nuclear family. We had a robust discussion about that on the program this week. And the out-of-wedlock births and the teenage births and how that's handled today and how that's become more commonplace. It's down a little bit, but it's still way too high. So, and they also go on to say that those of us who support school choice refuse to confront the real history. Instead of confronting an unequal playing field, they repackage it as opportunity, offering escape hatches for a few while leaving the majority of students behind in even more under-resourced schools, which is code word for we need more money. Well, I passed by, again, a charter school, which is a part of the public schools authorized by the Charter School Authorization Board here in Mississippi yesterday, and it looked like it was doing pretty dang well, and it's serving the community of those who didn't get an escape hatch. They live right there for the most part, just looking for a different setting. We're stepping aside for a break. We're coming right back on Middays. Stay with us.
This program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge news. Huge news. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Good tune there by the Little River Band. So I'll just say again that they're missing the mark here, in my view, the Democrats with this press release.
Democrats not having a clue? No.
Money is not the solution here. Do you need a certain level of funding to deliver quality education? Well, sure, you do. But that doesn't explain why you've got schools getting the same level of funding as others and performing at a very high level relative to others who perform at a low level. That doesn't explain it. Gee, there must be something else going on there, right? And again, I say it's because children are being brought up in challenging circumstances that gets in the way of their ability to thrive in the classroom, and then there's clearly a distinction in the performance and the overall quality of the instructors, of the teachers. And I don't know exactly at this point how to fix that problem. They would argue, well, we got to pay them more money, but that doesn't explain why so many are not just a little better, but a lot better than others, causing the disparity in the outcomes. There's more to it than that. It's not just, hey, give us more money, that'll fix it. And I feel like that's the message they're conveying here in these 7 or 8 paragraphs. We just want more money. That's it. Less for you, more for us kind of deal. And it's watching Mondami, he's on the screen, the Democrat socialist, really a Marxist candidate in New York. I mean, same message. You look at his platform. We're going to get more money from the rich people, and we're going to give it to all these other people. And that, boom, that'll just cause everybody to be happy. We'll just kumbaya around that. Nothing could be further from the truth. What about the incentive associated with producing and providing value? And when you take that away, where does that leave society? If there's no incentive to improve, to innovate, if the government's going to take all the fruits of that labor, that doesn't fix anything. In fact, it impedes, it stifles innovation. And man, we're at a time where we need it more than ever. And that's why I'm so excited about this revolution, this new renaissance that's taking place in this country with this massive amount of artificial intelligence. And there are lots of other outflows from that technology as well that produce all sorts of useful tools in assets and resources that can improve the quality of life in our state and in our country. But just throwing more money at failing school districts is not the solution. It's not going to cause them to magically convert to A-graded districts as it goes. I just don't see that happening. On the C Spire text line, Dan in Tate County says, taxpayers should not have to pay for government employees' retirements. Well, I'd ask this question of you, Dan. Should they have to pay their salary? Like, explain the difference. Why should they pay their salary but not the benefits associated with that salary? I hear what you're saying, and I'm not trying to be confrontational with you, but I can tell you this, that generally speaking, wages in the public sector are lower than the private sector, and what lures most to the public sector over the private sector is the retirement program. It's different. You can't find those for the most part in the private sector. Can't find generous retirement programs. Can't find defined benefit programs anymore.
I just remembered a chart I saw a couple of days ago, and it nicely connects schools and the conversation on AI, because the computational usage graph for ChatGPT took a nosedive about the same time schools got out for summer.
So obviously using it is to aid in their schoolwork. That's what I think.
I don't think it's aiding a whole lot. I think it's doing
it. Okay, kind of like this press release, which certainly has marks and indications of being generated by AI, and that's fine. I mean, it really is. I sometimes feel like maybe there should be some explanation of that, some footnote, some qualification of the attribution there. Does that make sense? I mean, and that's part of what the talk is in AI regulation, that the public has a right to know when something is purely AI generated or partially versus not. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. That's a complex and dicey subject. Certainly when it comes to replicating one's image, one's likeness, one's voice, that's a problem. In Tennessee, they passed the Elvis Act in 24, mainly to protect the talent of performing artists, because they have a lot of those, country artists in particular, in the Nashville area. So to protect their likeness, their voice, from being replicated and resold, if you will, they enacted law. It's illegal to do that.
So when it comes to students using AI to write their reports, write their papers, answer the quiz questions, and then you have teachers using AI to check if it's AI generated, doesn't seem like the teachers are doing as much teaching, and the kids are definitely doing less learning.
I would agree. More teachers and smaller class sizes would work wonders on the C Spire text line. And you could be right. I think there's something to be said for the ratio of students to teacher. However,
that would be a great argument for school choice.
I agree. Because we'd have more outlets and more options and more settings. But here's the thing. Has anybody done an analysis in the state of Mississippi that says, hey, look, the A performing districts have smaller ratios than the F, the D, C performing districts? Has that such an analysis been done? I bet you'd find that in the poorer performing districts that the ratio isn't much different, might even be lower than in the higher performing districts. I don't know. AI in schools is sort of like when someone asked Henry Ford a question trying to humiliate him. He said, why do I need to know all that? I have 12 buttons on my desk that summon someone with that knowledge. Interesting. James Earl Jones is still doing Arby's commercials, says Michael in Brookhaven.
It's actually Ving Rhames.
Is it? It's not.
Ving Rhames has been doing that since like 2012, 2014, somewhere around there.
Okay. If public schools were doing a proper job of educating students, homeschooling, charter schools, and private schools would not be an issue, says Robert and Brandon. And you could be right, Robert. I go back to, again, my belief that it's just about giving choice and letting the market do its thing, letting it dictate all that. It's not, well, the public schools are fine, we don't need school choice. I disagree. Even if they were all A's, I disagree. I think it's a matter of just giving people a choice. It's simple as that. And this argument that we shared yesterday, that was from a tweet from the Mississippi Democratic Party that about public money, you hear this argument all the time being used to fund private school, and they made the argument that Pell Grants and SNAP, that would be food stamps, they tried, at least attempted to make the argument that those were paid directly to the seller, if you will, the recipient of those funds. That would be the schools or the grocery stores, and that's not true. Those funds are applied for, and then they are directed to the choice of the recipient. Pell Grants as well as SNAP benefits. SNAP benefits don't come with some qualification that says, oh, you can only use this at XYZ grocery store. It's not how it works. You choose. So they made a pretty good case, honestly, for vouchers. You're essentially giving the parents and the teachers the prerogative, the discretion, not the teachers, the parents and the students, the prerogative, the discretion over how to spend the money allocated to that student by the state for their education. When they're right, that is a requirement under our law. Every student's got to be educated. We're just saying that parents and students have a choice of what that setting should look like. That's it. Nothing more. It's just about freedom. I don't know why so many people are opposed to freedom. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook.
Gerard Gibert.
Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Mo says a 650 square foot studio apartment in Hawaii in 1980 was $1,500 or more. I don't doubt it. I was talking earlier about living in, I actually lived in Bakersfield where it was cheap, but traveled on almost every weekend down to L.A. proper to a friend's apartment in Santa Monica. And it was $750 for, I'm telling you, that apartment seemed like it could fit in the studio. I always slept on the floor. He had the bed that came out of the wall. Yeah, I don't doubt it, Mose. It's incredible. They also had to pay, as I recall, $75 a month to park his car at the apartment complex as well. But what you got from his little bitty, teeny tiny apartment, and the one window in it was a view of the Pacific, which was pretty incredible, honestly. What's your take on employers doing away with pensions now that the match doesn't make up for that? Well, that's on the C-Spire text line. Employers have been eliminating their defined benefit programs for years, decades. There are very few left remaining. And
the first big push was the late 80s and early 90s, and then what was that bill that passed in 06? Pension protection? It was something in 2006 that passed that increased the amount that could be put in your 401k.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But it also made companies that had pensions increase their liability from 90% to 100%. And it had a lot of changes, but that was basically the end of pensions in America, was that legislation.
And that was common. And really they did it for the same reason that Social Security and PERS and other defined benefit programs are struggling with right now. It's the same issue. It's a very challenging financial model when it's based on pay as you go. It's people paying in today are essentially funding the benefits going out the other door today. And when those ratios adjust, when you got fewer people paying in employed relative to the number receiving out, it puts pressure on the program. And that's exactly what's happening to Social Security in a big way. And PERS to some extent as well. PERS has got some other structural problems, systemic problems that were put in place back in the 90s that are sort of coming home to roost. So that's not unusual. Most employers have these defined contribution plans. 401k plan is the most common. And those are different in that the employer is only on the hook for the term that the employee works for them. They're contributing into those plans, as is the employee. And then when the employee retires and starts drawing out, they see how much money's in that account. That's it. Rather in a defined benefit program like PERS, you don't know. You don't have an account literally associated with you, nor do you in Social Security. I'm not saying they don't track it, that they don't have the data of what you pay, but it's not like there's a bucket of money sitting over there. Here's Rhino's retirement. That's not how it works. This is what your monthly amount is. As long as you're breathing, you get that every month. That's how it works. Forget about how much you paid in and your employer paid in. That's irrelevant at this point. This, according to the formula, is what you're entitled to receive out. That's the way PERS works. Same deal. So I'm not surprised that employers have shifted away from this. Again, it just was not financially sustainable. And some of those big employers, I remember IBM and AT&T in particular, when they moved away from defined benefit programs, they took huge one-time charges, as they call it, on their financial statements, on their income statement. Basically, they wrote a big old check to those plans to fund all those who remained in it. Everybody that they hired from then on out was in a different plan. We could do the same thing here in the state of Mississippi. We need about $4 or $5 billion. Just write a check, and boom, we'd be done with this problem. But that's not practical. Not only that, we ain't got the money. So that's why we're looking at other potential solutions. I have read we have a consumer-driven economy, says DJ in Summit. So what would happen if our economy, if millions of people have less to spend because of cuts to Social Security, PERS, or other retirement accounts? Well, yeah, that would have an impact on the economy, sure. Consumption is a major part of it. And if consumption declines because people have less disposable income, then companies' profits would suffer, and that causes all kinds of problems for employment, the stock market, tax revenue, down the list. So you point out, DJ, what I've tried to convey here is that this is a very complicated problem. The solution sounds simple. Hey, just go get more money, pay less out. But when you come down to it, it's way more nuanced than that. Let's see here. What else we got here? Donald in Oxford says, I was told by an educator who was 26 years in and eligible for retirement at 25 years under PERS that they have moved to 30 and about to go to 35 years. She says there will be a teacher shortage once it gets to 35 years. Well, already there, you can retire under the new Tier 5, 62 with 30 years, or any age with 35. So that's already there. Is this going to cause a problem recruiting? There have been some public sector employers across the state, municipal, agency level, that have said, yeah, this new Tier 5 is going to make recruiting more difficult. I haven't heard anything other than that. I don't know how it's going, if they're experiencing some sort of critical shortages of certain job roles, like teachers. I don't know. But I do know they have all expressed concerns about it. It's brand new, so we don't know, right? They really haven't gotten in gear on that. What is your take on taking Fannie and Freddie public? I just read the article about a potential IPO in the Journal. Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. I think there's a little too much government involved in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And I think that it's a bit, it distorts the mortgage market. So, yeah, I'd be fine with taking them public and getting the government out of them more. That's something I know the president has talked about as well. Let's see. Tim McGee says, when the lieutenant governor said he hoped I lived in Mr. Bound's district where I could vote against him, well, I don't. But if the lieutenant governor runs for governor, I and about 35 friends and kinfolk can vote against him about mobile sports betting. Yeah, he largely believed that he was part of the reason that didn't go through as well. It's hard to recruit experienced personnel in my field in particular because no one who has worked to gain experience in the private sector in their 40s, this is Nick in Oxford, or later is willing to take a lower salary plus have to work into their 70s to draw PERS. Yeah, and that's the point, is that's always been a distinction, a differentiator for public sector employment versus private sector employment. It's always been the benefits. They typically get more vacation time, and they've got this very handsome retirement program that you generally don't find in the private sector. That's always been, in my view, having worked a lot with state government employees in my business experience, it's always been what they said. Yeah, I stay. And it's a hook as well, because your retirement benefits are based on your years of service. So it's an added little incentive to stay employed in the public sector, because the minute you leave it, you just sort of locked in your retirement benefits. If you stay, you put in more years, contribute more, your retirement benefits when you get ready to do that are higher. Let's see. Tunica and Claiborne County have had tremendous revenue for their schools. Interesting. So I'm assuming that would be revenue from it comes from property taxes. That's where the local revenue, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to on the C Spire text line, would be the local revenue stream that funds public schools, not the state. It's based on the number of students. It's an amount per student, and then there are some adjustments on top of that. Let's see what else we got. Has any? Well, I don't know. How did this, Jason in Starkville? I think most of Europe, for the most part, was settled by, built by a homogeneous demographic. I think many would argue that the melting pot that built the United States is the reason this country sort of passed up the rest of the world. I think there's some truth to that. A strong argument could be made for it. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio with a final segment.
Get ready.
Gerard Gibert.
He keeps his classified documents right where they belong.
Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s.
Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Final segment this week on Middays. Do have a bit of an announcement. I will be on the road next week, traveling, and there will be a guest host in my place next Monday through Thursday. I'm traveling tomorrow to Las Vegas for the largest artificial intelligence conference in North America. It's called AI4. And as I've shared before, I was honored to be appointed to the state's AI regulatory task force. And so I felt this warranted me investing some time and money to go get even further educated. And, Rhino, I look forward to coming back and sharing some of that stuff with you. And one of the things that's really attractive about this conference, it's not just sitting, in a room with a bunch of people with some technologist digging into the weeds of creating LLMs. It's a lot of industry leaders, company executives talking about their practical application of AI in their business settings and in government as well. And so I look forward to just learning that. And I did buy the VIP pass. Of course, these deals are always structured that way, which allows some time with some of the speakers in more intimate settings other than in a room with 3,000-4,000 other people, which is all good when they're delivering their addresses, but having some one-on-one is especially exciting to me. So I'm looking forward to that. That gets kicked off Monday morning and then concludes Wednesday evening, and then I'm traveling back on Thursday. Looking forward to that. We had someone on the C Spire text line that this person has been a very strong arguer against school choice in the past.
It's because he's convinced himself that he's the end-all, be-all, know-it-all for everything education.
And now is digging into PERS and takes, of course, exception to what we're saying here. Still is convinced that there's just no problem in PERS, that all these actuaries are wrong and they don't know what they're talking about, that we shouldn't really be concerned about the unfunded liability and the way defined benefit programs are scored. There are three major categories, and they're scored as in either green light, yellow light, or red light category, and all three of those metrics for the state of Mississippi's PERS program are in the red light category. and that is a concern. I'm not going to get into the details of what those metrics are. They're a little wonky, honestly. They're kind of actuarial language, if you will. But the other thing is this person sent us a chart, and they've sent it before. It's a screenshot. And
it's a picture of a computer screen. They don't even know how to do a screenshot.
Okay, that's true. It's a picture of a computer screen. And it just shows Mississippi's educational progress, which has been noteworthy, no doubt, and something to celebrate relative to states that also have school choice. I don't really think that's even a valid comparison to start with. Doesn't really make any sense. That doesn't diminish the case for school choice. So that's like saying, I'm going to use Bernie Sanders' argument here. Oh, so these people these other states implemented school choice, and they haven't made as significant improvements in their educational outcomes as we have. Shouldn't we also point out, Rhino, that we had a very, very, very low point from which to start?
And we should also point out that it was educators that were trying to stand in the way of third-grade reading gate, which has improved those reading results.
That's a major reform. That's exactly right. Caused us to achieve some of these great outcomes and great results. The governor's pointed that out many times. But it made me think about Bernie Sanders. I'm going to use this analogy with, why do we have all the deodorant here in the grocery store? It's like saying, well, we have all these choices, and I chose one, and I still stink. My underarms aren't working. Is that a reason to eliminate the choice? How many times do I have to say that? This is about freedom and choice. Let the market determine the best setting, and let the outcomes fall where they may. It ain't no different than selecting a deodorant in the grocery store. I'm going to pick one and hope it works. If that doesn't, I'll pick another one. But I have the freedom to do so. I'm not restricted by government bureaucrats such as this person, who obviously seems to want government to dictate every aspect of our lives, like this goofball Mondami in New York wants to do. When are people going to realize that freedom and choice always are superior to restriction and less options and government dictates and mandates? Am I missing something here? This just seems pretty straightforward to me.
Well, common sense is not so common nowadays.
Just give us a choice. That's all we're asking for. It's simple as that. Parents are way smarter than government bureaucrats. Did the legislators vote to allow themselves to draw from PERS as with 4 years or as 8? No, that's not true. That's on the ceasefire text line. I don't have time to get into that today, unfortunately, but too much focus on that. They do have a special program. They contribute to it. They pay for it. It's ending. We're out of here today. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next Friday. Until then, stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.